and I got your agenda, Hobie. And so in response to your bundle proposal, we are rejecting the bundle proposal. Primarily on the basis of Article 16, the vacation proposal.
Yep.
As a team, as a district, we do not see vacation for 10-month employees, 10 or 11-month employees happening during this bargaining session. And so that's something that we'll discuss later. We will have a package for you that will include Articles 3, 4, and our May 18th of Article 16. So we will be presenting to you in a little bit Articles 3, 4, and again, the May 18th of proposal of Article 16 vacations. So we'd like to start with Article 18, emergency school closure, and see if we can get closer to settling that one. And so I'll just go ahead and pass that out to you.
Feel that way. I can tell you to go to Vegas right now. Do that.
This proposal is, what we heard from you last time was really liking the contract language that you bargained for in our last go around. So what we tried to do is have it be much more like current contract language, but again, kind of still feeling the need to clean up or have some direction around what happens with 10, 11, and 12-month employees, because they are different based on their contract calendar. And so a bulk of this that we had spelled out in 3 different paragraphs in our previous proposal now all resides in 1B in terms of what happens with 10, 11, and 12-month employees. So I will walk through a couple of things just noting some changes. One thing in 1B that we changed: employees will not perform work unless required to do so. There's 2 reasons for that. Both relate to working remotely or working from home. There may be some instances where employees could work from home, and that might be could perform functions during a closure from home. But we also, that needs to be part of that sentence, though, unless required to do so. Is we've had some instances where some employees, we appreciate their zealousness to work and things like that, but also need to know that they need to be told to do so versus assuming that I can just start working from home. So we changed. That's the reason for perform work unless required to do so, is on both sides of that. We want to make sure that they are being told to do that work, and also acknowledging that since we've learned a lot about working remotely, that there might be some times for people to do that.
Okay.
The language, the next language, the 10 and 11-month employees will be paid for temporary closure but agree to make up work days. That's just basically what's in current contract language and what has been in past practice. That they'll get. I know that in the last bargaining session, you wanted to make sure everybody got paid. And that's still the case. It's just the agreement to make lost days. So, and we did add, just for some clarity's sake, except for the first missed day per school year, so that the board, the board agrees that a lost day, that there's going to be kind of a free one for the year.
Versus one for every closure.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So now we get into the 12-month employees, and I know that in the last, in some of the conversations we've had, is this idea of, well, if everyone gets a free one, what happens to the 12-month employees that are designated to work on that first day? In this case, so hopefully what we put together makes sense. And that 12-month employees will be paid for the first emergency closure day. If designated to work on this first missed day, 12-month employees will be paid for their hours worked in addition to closure pay. I struggled to figure out what we wanted to call that, but hopefully that makes, so they get paid for a full day, plus they'll get paid for what everybody else gets as a missed day. So I think you could look at it as double pay for that day. I don't want to misspeak, Kim. I don't know what you would call it.
For hours worked.
For hours
Double
worked.
pay for the hours worked. Yes, everybody's paid their regular shift on a closure day. But if you lost your freebie, had to come in for 4 hours, you get paid for those 4 hours on top of your freebie pay. For lack of- for that first miss day.
Yeah. So then after that kind of spells out some of the things that we were trying to clarify in our previous proposal is that after the first missed day, 12-month employees who are required to perform work will receive their regular rate of pay. District supervisors of these employees will communicate necessary work-related information to these employees if needed and as necessary during non-contract hours. Employees required to perform work but are unable to do so may choose to use paid leave in lieu of a pay deduction, which essentially was with your language that you had proposed in kind of a teal font in your last proposal. And the rest of our changes were either in our previous proposals and I think that they're intended just to provide clarity. I will point out on the back page that E is completely struck out because it moved into 1B. And I did make a change in the long-term emergency closure to, again, for clarity's sake, that more than 5 consecutive school days is the trigger versus 1 week. I thought 5 consecutive school days made more sense.
That's new.
That is a new change. Yes. But only intended to provide some greater clarity.
Well, definitely give us something to talk about.
Any questions on that? All right.
Thanks. I think we're good on that one.
So as I mentioned, our package proposal that we have again is our existing proposal for Article 16 on vacations. And what we have for you today is on Articles 3 and 4 is in listening in our previous bargaining sessions, there's a lot on the table. There's a lot that you've proposed and trying to trying to figure out what the priority is for you and trying to figure that out. And so when we met last week as a team to talk, the one thing that seems consistent across the board is wages for everybody. Seems to be the one thing that's come up each time. And so we have put together a proposal and a restructuring of that that focuses on wages. So because that seems to be at least the consistent theme in the previous bargaining sessions. So our focus here is to try to Steve talked about total compensation, I think 2 sessions ago, and we've oftentimes talked about the pie and how you divide it up. And so we've taken a different approach to focus on increasing wages.
So, in my career, I was a proponent for carving up the pie, however choose. There's kind of X amount of new dollars that we budget, but there's dollars that are already out there that could be possibly used in new and different ways. And so I think that this proposal is essentially the same in terms of total compensation, new dollars that we're proposing from our first one, which was a total new compensation increase of $347,000. But in analyzing everything, we're definitely, right at the top rung of districts in terms of insurance contribution in the state, top 5 or 10%. And so it's gotten to the point where there's employees that are actually losing out on some HSA contributions because of the IRS limit per year, especially with the addition of the Kaiser HSA plan, which is only about $1,000 a month. So, what we're looking at doing with this is to free up, give more options and freedom to all the employees within the membership to use their compensation in ways that benefit them the most, because everybody's situation is not exactly the same. So I have the articles here, but also a 2-page summary that we'll go through to kind of explain what we're looking at here. And Kim is actually going to talk about those details, and I'll go ahead and pass off the sheets. So, and I apologize, the article is actually printed in black and white. I apologize. Is that printer over in the counseling? That's just grayscale, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's what I
the
thought.
one that's supposed to be colored is the one going.
So we can send these electronically as well, but go ahead, Kim.
So as both Dan and Steve, mentioned, we really are wanting to meet the needs of your members. We're hearing that wages, is key. I hear a lot in my position. I get a lot of feedback from the employees in regard to their pay or their benefits. And so try to look at what have the positives been, what have some of the barriers been for employees, and came across with increased wages. I don't think there's anyone that's gonna have an issue with that, but maintaining 100% employer paid medical insurance for your members, medical, dental, and vision insurance, is also key. People are very appreciative of the fact that they can cover an entire family with 0 payroll deduction. So we kept that in mind, but also looking at it and saying, we have a lot of employees who receive a lot of compensation that is restricted to an HSA and can only be used for medical expenses. And maybe the need is not there. As you guys might know, you cannot have an HSA unless you enroll in a high deductible health plan. A high deductible health plan typically is geared towards people with stable health, lower healthcare costs. So when they're getting $5,000 or more a year into an HSA, but their costs are maybe $1,000, it in a way there's compensation that they're receiving, but it's not helping replace the heat pump. It's not putting the new roof on the house. So that is where this came from. So what we gave you some examples of under this, restructuring, there would be 8 of the medical plans that you're offering your membership available at no cost to the employee. There would be 7, and I say 7, it would be extrapolated, huge number of medical and dental plans available at no cost to the employee, still, again, with some HSA contributions from the district, and a significant number of medical, dental, and vision combinations. So what I wanted to see was that we still have a significant number of options available to employees to cover their entire family with 0 out-of-pocket for medical, dental, and vision. And what in turn this restructuring could do is by using for some people, the excess insurance contribution, you could reallocate that, restructure that into wages. And we were able to figure out that right across the board would add 3.5% to every single cell on the pay scale. Not just those eligible for insurance, not just those taking the HSA. Every single employee in this classified employee in this district would benefit from this. So it came out to be a 3.5% restructure increase. We're maintaining the 2% COLA increase. So these numbers here are reflecting a 5.5% increase to hourly rates for 21-22, and wanted to show you what does that equate to on the paycheck. And that's what that column there on the side is. What is the increase in that monthly paycheck for those positions at those steps? The number in parentheses at the end of the title is their step. What I did is I went into our current wage scales, figured out where do we have a lot of people. Those are some positions and steps that are very heavy right now. So I wanted you to see live figures. The big thing to keep in mind, you know, I look at it and say, well, but there are people who need that HSA money. There are people, but the thing is, the HSA is still there. So that money's going onto my paycheck, and I can decide to take that money that went into my paycheck and put it right back into my HSA pre-tax. HSA contributions are not taxed. Income tax, not Medicare, not Social Security. So that goes right back in there. Maybe my HSA is healthy. Maybe I want to, you know, do some other kind of savings. Maybe I want to help pay for my disability plan with American Fidelity. Maybe I want to open a 403B, but maybe I need that take-home pay to replace my roof or water heaters or heat pumps. So I know it's a very different approach, but it really, honestly, at my heart, this is something I'm hearing, and it gives employees the power to choose where a portion of that compensation may benefit them. Maybe it's, so any questions specifically on kind of the details? Clearly that information on the front, as far as combinations, medical plans, I just wanted to demonstrate there is no change to how your employees currently can choose their menu of plans. But, you know, we have a significant number. Actually, I ran it. We have 42 of your employees have individual coverage that their HSA limit is hit usually in August or September. They do not get that. They forfeit their HSA benefit for the rest of the year. Because if somebody enrolls, let's call it the Kaiser medical plan, they're getting almost $700 a month into an HSA. The IRS doesn't allow it to go above $3,550. So we have people actually hitting it. I mean, depending on if they chose medical only, they're maxed out in May, and they're maxed out for the calendar year. The IRS rule is a calendar year rule.
So just to again summarize, so the 2% COLA that was in the original proposal still there, that's new money. And then the 3.5% restructure increase that we call it is in exchange for insurance going from $1,645 per month employer contribution to $1,500 per month contribution. For people that have not maxed out on their columns, that would be getting a step next year. Usually that's worth about 3.8% between cells. So those folks would be getting essentially a 9.3% increase on wages. The people that are already on step 8 in 2021 will be getting a 6% increase because last year we struck the agreement of the new step, and it was 1.5% above step 7. Next year it automatically goes to 2% above step 7. So it would be the 2% COLA, the 3.5% restructure, and the extra 0.5% on the step.
I think we need a minute to absorb it.
Sorry.
We might have some questions for you, Carl.
So, and Hobie, you understand that all of these kind of go together. So if you accept it, you have to accept it in its
Oh,
entirety.
so it is a bundle, that's what you're saying. Except for 18, right? Or is
Yeah.
that part of the
Yeah,
bundle?
18 separate.
Yeah, I understand that.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
right?
yep.
So the insurance, the vacation proposal, and the salary are, what they
Right.
call it, a bundle or a package.
Or
or-
package,
Right.
same thing.
Yeah, right.
Okay, but 18 is a standalone.
Yep. Yes.
All right, well, we're definitely gonna need some time with this. I want to make a couple calls and ask my folks to really read it and think about it, and talk about it, so. You do a presentation.
That's all we have.
That's all we have, just making sure.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
The bundle, you could add a few extra pages. All right, so why don't we do this? When we caucus, we'll give you an update around, I'm gonna say probably at least 3:45. We'll give you an update where we're at, okay?
All right, sounds good.
So what you see here is largely your proposal. we changed it from temporary to short-term closure, just to keep the, since we changed it up above here. From short-term to, got rid of the temporary. That used to say temporary. I just realized it deleted it instead of Xing it out. There was the word temporary there. That's the change there. On the back side, just to avoid confusion, we changed it from school days under long-term to work days. That's really the extent of the changes in there.
Or if it's an insert stay.
All right. I think we reached an agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. 18's done. Now, that's the good news. Bad news is we didn't really talk over the proposal. We're so busy working on this one. So, so we're gonna need some more time on that, but I did want to ask a couple of follow-up questions with that proposal on financials. So, and I guess I've corrected Steve. So we're moving the 150 over from the insurance, dropping it down to 1,500. And that's the effort to try to pay for some of those things, right? I essentially got that right.
Yeah, it's a total dollar amount. It equates 3.5% additional wage. Yes.
Okay. That's I understand that right then. And then the other piece I had a question on was last go around, we were dealing with medical. I know Kevin was one of the people that was talking about this too. You guys wanted to move your medical plan so it was the exact same for the teachers and the classified. This would obviously change that dynamic. Does that screw things up? I mean, you guys were pretty steadfast last time on that. That's what I'm asking. Or if something's changed.
Well, we did talk about aligning that, and classified's actually been ahead of both of all
Yeah.
other groups the last couple of years in that amount, and we've just tried to keep them in the same range, but we're, with this proposal, we're changing the dynamics, obviously, just
Right.
because we're trying to address, other things that have arisen, and classified is different just in terms of, obviously, there's lots of different jobs within classified, lots of different columns. Whereas with teachers, sure, there's different columns based on their education, but the same core job. So, we're trying to, where again, 1,276 hour per year employees are making $15 plus an hour in insurance. That's not the case with these other groups. So we could say that the monthly amount has been the same or close to the same for many years. The per hour is different. So what we're doing here is we're saying, well, you pay for 70-80% of your plan still fully with the $1,500 per month contribution, and get more wages, which then you have the flexibility to make decisions to say, well, I do need still money to go into HSA, so I'll put that in pre-tax because I'm not getting as much of an employer contribution, or I'm going to put some into a 403B pre-tax, at least for federal and state. Or if, in this case, the reduction in the insurance premium is for someone that chooses a non-HSA plan, which is a higher premium, you're obviously going to have some out-of-pocket deduction to pay for premium, but that also is pre-tax for Fed, state, Social Security.
Mhm.
So it allows more flexibility because not everyone's in the same situation. Just like there's lots of different positions within the union membership, there's a lot of different individual situations and priorities that people might have based on their particular household situation. So I think it makes the compensation more powerful, more flexible, and doesn't restrict. And some people, like I said, in some cases, people are running into the IRS limits and forfeiting benefits that they have. So that's kind of the.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But yeah, so we are then essentially floating away from
Yeah.
a similar monthly amount. Yes.
Okay.
But still, for much of the membership, more of an hourly amount for even at $1,500 hourly amount for insurance than teachers, for example.
Yeah, no, I was just curious if something changed, because that was one of the things I think we went till really late in the game before we did that. So that's why I was asking. Yeah.
Hobie, I think as I listened to the conversation, I think they made the move off their kind of policy or philosophical principle there because they're trying to find a way to address an issue that you've raised, right? They're trying to think outside the box.
Okay.
So I think that was more a form of how we got to this process than us deciding that wasn't a good philosophical place to be. I mean, when we bargain, we often get sandwiched between both licensed and classified, which is why we often try to hold some of those standards the same. But in this case, you've been pretty vocal about some of the other things. So we're trying to figure out a way to address that need, which requires us to come off the other kind of principle, right? Now, that also means that as we go into bargaining, a year or two down the road, if you start talking to us about, well, we want to catch up with the teachers, we're gonna have a conversation about what some of those trade-offs were when we bargained it, right? And how that money got distributed. But I mean, as I listened to it as a third party sitting there as they were brainstorming, I would tell you, I think that's kind of how we got.
And that's fine. I just remember it was one of the things we had to late in the bargaining process the last time before we finally got off that. So I was just curious what the change was, if it was something significant I was unaware of. And the other question I had for you was, if my math's right, our steps are not truly indexed, right? They kind of float a little between step, like what the percentage between is.
I think between steps 1 through 7, the average increase between steps is about 3.8%. Now there's some rounding things in there, so it could be anywhere from, in that 3.738%. Now, to point out that the difference between 7 and 8 was a hard 1.5% because step 8 was just added last year.
Right.
This year that goes up to 2%. I think the year after 2.5.
Right.
But yeah. Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the average is about 3.8%. You shouldn't find anything lower than 3.7. We'd have to go back.
We'd have to look at it again. I do know that was.
Yeah.
Our last view.
We'll double check, but yeah, 3.8 was the
I
average.
appreciate that. All right. Well, we spent all that time on 18, but I guess we got it done.
Yeah.
We have to go back and have some more discussions about the rest of your package. But I figured we should at least come out and give you something to break up the monotony. So,
Thanks.
all right, thanks. We have black and white because that's all that we print. So I'm gonna have to kind of tell you. See, did you normally could see the changes in blue or not? I'm gonna hand those out, Ty. But I guess I'll just have to, you'll have to circle them with your pen or something. Although we're supposed to have a color printer next time, right, Ty?
Do what?
Have a color printer next time?
Sure.
Officially, for the record, we did decline your package. We did spend a lot of time looking at it and talking through it. But just didn't feel that it got us where we needed to be. Starting with Article 3 of our bundle or package, whatever you call it. We have dropped that down to $2 for our 1-year contract here. And then if you scroll on down, sorry, not scrolling down, if you go on down to, let's see if we've changed anything else. I guess we have changed to better reflect. I did look at what Kim was talking about, although it does not directly speak to what I was saying about that section. We did change this to better, since there is talk about cash outs in the other areas. We did change under the purse pickup, we did change that to reflect vacation only. As I looked at you pointed out, I went and looked at some of the other contract claims, talks about cash out for compensation, stuff like that. And we agreed that if we educate the people and let them know that they can do that, that's another way to go about it. So the vacation piece, we felt there may be confusion on, because it speaks to being scheduled, I think cashed out. There's a couple different options, right? So we thought this would be a little clearer for that, for them to utilize that to offset or to have another form of savings. So I think that's only changes in 3.
So just to clarify on the, so we're still, because your original proposal was only for only for those impacted by the redirect.
That's correct. The original proposal for that, it was asking for, I think Steve said it was $108,000 cost for the district. We backed that off to reflect a way that these people could self-fund the redirect, or if they just wanted to have a secondary, for lack of a better term, retirement account, right, through a TSA, and save the district $108,000. They'd be funding it themselves.
Except that any remaining vacation days left at the end of the school year, because that there's going to be, I mean, employees can carry over some of their vacation. So, I mean, theoretically, people could hold on to their vacation and just start cashing it out. So that, I think in theory, would cost us, potentially could cost us more.
If they hold on to it.
If I'm getting 20 days of vacation
Right.
and I know that I can always be carrying 10, let's say I cash out 10 vacation days per year,
Okay.
because I'm always in a situation where I can be carrying that much.
Right.
I'm just thinking that this potentially still could be more, because there will always be people that would rather take money than time.
Well, sure, but the current language, after I looked at it, said it could be, I think, scheduled or cashed out by the district as well, if I remember correctly. So,
But I think that the thing that at the end of the school year, at the end of their employment, if they had vacation, at the end of their employment,
mhm.
we cash out unused vacation days,
We
but
don't cash
we
it out
don't,
every year.
we don't do annual cash outs.
Well, I guess we would if we did this, wouldn't we?
Well, again, my only point is that we're still,
You could incur costs, is what you're saying.
yeah.
It would be
and
significantly less than
potentially more.
$108,000, right?
Because this is all employees versus, I think, how many employees did you estimate that were impacted by the redirect? About 30.
30-some.
That's a different number than ever before, but that's okay. Well, I suppose that you would come back with
Let's see.
something that would reflect that better, right, in a counter proposal.
It's the same number we shared with people last time.
No, I could have swore it was a different number, because I thought we had some folks that, well, it's neither here nor there. Our proposal is this, we're willing to look at anything you have as a counter. Understanding that you have concern about it being additional costs, even though I think it'd be less than what Steve had gamed out, but even if it is or isn't, if you want to come back with something that we can look at that would better understand from where your point of view is on the costs, we could do that for sure. If you wanted to limit it to the folks on the redirect, because this would open it up for all of them. That is correct. To set up an additional savings through the application. Although it would largely, at this point, be just 12-month employees. And I think that's the only change on that one or those two pieces. On 3.
Shelby, I just have a clarifying question under number 2. That's 112 or 120?
Does it say 112? It should say 120. It says 120 on mine.
Well, the
The
word
word
says
says
12.
12.
Ah, dang you and your perfection with eyesight. All right, must have, yeah, that should be 100. That should be 120. Just missed it. I have my glasses on for that one. All right, I made the change here. That's something we already talked about, so. All right. Okay, so for Article 4 of our bundle package here. Main change we put in here, everything's pretty much what you've seen. The main change we put in here is that we added an E. And we thought it was an interesting idea. We were trying to do by that choice of kind of shifting some things around. And this literally is holder language if we want to do it at all. But the idea being is that we like the idea of people having the personal choice to kind of change stuff around. If we had a committee that could work on something that both sides could agree to going forward, we'd be interested in looking at that way, but doing something kind of just for everybody all at once was not something that the committee wanted to do. They didn't want to make that, that's what we changed there. And we understood what you were trying to do and stuff. Really, we would be funding our own raise, really, taking money from one pot, putting it to the other. Which I know you explained that, but it's just not something that folks were feeling is something that we could agree to today. But we would be interested in looking at it in the future if we wanted to put together some language on a committee that could look at something down the road to give people more of an individual choice, how they want to direct their money. That could be something we could do. If you go to the next article on 16. We have at the very top of the page, we've removed the strike through for the 12-month employees only. So the schedule below is the same, but it would apply to 12-month only. We have added the number 6 down there, stating that all employees receive 5 vacation days annually. So we've moved off of, for this bundle, we've moved off of the vacation for all at the same schedule above, and just recognizing the 10 months with the 5 days only. And do you want me to send these to you digitally, Dan?
Yeah, please.
Right.
Like the request is, you said that Central had agreed to some vacation time. Could you send me the language they agreed? to?
Dallas was a vacation time.
Oh, I thought the last meeting you said Central did.
No, Central did, nobody's starting their, I think they technically have a couple pay scales of 1654 and one, I think it's at 1679. But they said there's nobody in them with the changes they've made. They've moved it up to where nobody's making less than $17. Dallas, and I believe it's when we don't represent Salem, they have the vacation for all.
To Salem, they said no.
Nope, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's news to me. I guess I'll check into that because one of the people on our committee for North San AM is from Salem, and she talked all about it to our group about it.
So, but I thought at the last meeting, you said that Central had just settled and added vacation.
I don't
Because
believe
Dallas
so.
has had theirs for a while. I asked,
No,
I asked about
no.
if it was Dallas, and you said no, it was Central.
No,
Because
if I did, I
Dallas already
misspoke.
had theirs.
No, Dallas had 5 days. Last contract, I bargained it. Last contract, we got in vacation for all. I sent it to Dan, in fact.
Right.
Yeah. So,
5 days, but nothing at
But-
Central.
no,
5 days and no personal days
no,
at
No.
Dallas.
no, I'll be happy to send it to you again. They have the personal days. They moved, I think what we did was the first year, we didn't do it. We moved everybody to full vacation starting the second year.
So their 12-month employees don't have vacation either?
No, they all do.
Okay,
Everybody there. They're all on the same schedule.
so they all have 5 days?
No, they all have whatever the schedule is for each, length of service. I can send it to you.
So what's the 5 days?
The 5 days is, we were asking for all vacation and we backed it off to 5 days.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in the discussion of the comparables, you said there was one of the local, when I asked you about if Central had it, you
Yeah.
said, no, it was Dallas and they had 5 days.
No, Dallas used to have 5 days. We've moved it up from 5 days to vacation for all. So everybody has the same vacation schedule.
Okay, so the only comps that you have that provide vacation to non-12-month employees is Dallas and Salem.
I believe so, that I deal with. Well, I don't deal with Salem, but that I deal with, I believe it's just Dallas right now.
And if you have the Salem language, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'll look into that because the committee members seemed pretty sure when we were talking to the other folks.
Yeah, I actually talked to someone
Yeah,
in their central office.
okay, yeah, I'll ask him. I mean, actually, you know what? Darren Drill brought it up with me too. I think you represent him too, right?
Well, I don't represent Darren. I represent,
Maybe you should though.
I represent the Cascade School District.
Right, but I'm saying, I think he brought it up and we were talking and bargaining about the trade-offs and different things like that. We were having that discussion. I'm pretty sure he said that about Salem too, but I will double check. I will
Okay.
double check. I know for a fact Dallas does because I bargained it there. So I know that one's sure.
Mhm.
Right now. I will forget.
just trying to get a handle on what the data.
Yeah, no, I don't, yeah, and if I'm telling you something wrong, I want to know too,
Yeah,
so.
no, I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to get a handle on it. And I'm
Yeah.
asking for some stuff and people are telling me it doesn't, they don't have it. It's not part of their. So I'm trying to figure out if you've got something I'd love to.
Well, I hope Dallas isn't saying that. It's not even a year old. So, but I will I think I said Dallas.
I didn't call Dallas, so
Oh,
don't think
okay.
Dallas.
Good. Got a meeting with him next week. I will send you the Dallas language and I will reach out for the Kaiser and see if I can get that too. All right, that's not a problem. I'm sending you the articles right now, Dan. Usually. I'm suspecting that you won't have a calendar in 3 minutes.
No, no, I think, we've got a couple weeks until
Right.
until our next session, and I think that, I think our proposal today was trying to, I think we're gonna need some help from you in terms of getting some priority, because I think, our proposal was, focused on wages, to, looking at the pie and seeing how to adjust that. But, we're still, your insurance proposal is still, quite a bit more than any of our other groups. The $2 an hour, I'm not sure the calculation on that, but it's, it's still percentage wise has to, do you have a rough figure?
It's about 15% to the bottom of the scale and about 5% to the top.
Yeah,
If 3% was 6 to 22, then.
Yeah.
Cut that, multiply that.
Yeah.
67%.
I mean, I think that, I mean, you guys have, even with respect to what you did today, and I appreciate that it was something different to look at and that I understood what you were trying to do with it, but you've really been at 2% this whole time. I mean, that's really where you've been, right? And so we've adjusted ours up and down a bit, and we've tried to show you some different things through the packages to see if there's pieces where we can agree, right? But I guess I'll speak for all of us over here. We don't feel that that's happening on the other side. We feel that you guys are just stuck on your 2%, and that's the number, and we're not going to have any other discussions unless we want to take money from our benefits and to fund our other stuff. And that's problematic because we're trying to get a deal. And we've told you that with what's happening with the minimum wage, you're pushing up, we did the presentation showing you what's happened to that percentage that's gone between minimum wage and the middle of your scale, how it's just been going down like this, right? That's problematic for us, and I don't know the answer other than to tell you that this isn't it right now, so.
but most districts are settling around the 2.5%, and they can't compete with us on insurance. So the idea that we're going to get both, still increase the insurance by the amount you're asking when we're still outpacing everybody in insurance. And on top of that, we're going to get a 5 to 15% increase. I just don't, we're not close.
And I would say that it's a bundle for a reason, right? I mean, if we saw some different numbers on wages, we'd have to factor that into the other things that we're asking for, because that only makes sense, right?
So I think the one thing, I think Kevin would probably appreciate what I'm gonna say right about now. Traditional negotiations, which I might have encouraged you guys to do, in the sense of, we would have gone in stages. We would not have necessarily put our best offer on the table in order to bring this to closure sooner rather than later. That wasn't what these guys decided to do, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. You put all the money you had on the table. You made an effort to settle this contract in a fairly easy, approach. And I understand that in your mind, because it was the first offer, it should continue to go up. But when you come in and you don't necessarily play a more traditional game of, and I don't mean to use the word game in a negative way, right? It's a process that is often used. So as the parties go through the negotiations dance, right? But they just chose not to do that. And so I appreciate your perspective, but I would encourage you to think about it, not so much as that they're not moving, it's that they came to the table with the pot that they had available from jump, rather than trying to make it some sort of like, well, we'll start at 1 and then we'll go to 1.25, and then we go to 1.5, and then we go to 1.75, and then we go to 2. They just said, this is what we have, right? And this is, and so for you to think that just because we started that way, it has to always go up, Colby, I don't think is realistic, right? So,
So you guys came in with 2% and $5 insurance, and that's your best offer is what I'm hearing. Right. Okay, that's good to know.
I mean, am I misunderstanding what? Yeah, that's what I took. I mean, to some degree, we had a little bit of this conversation and everyone said, no, that's not how we want to do it. We want to approach it differently. And I said, okay. I'm totally on board with that approach.
Right. Nothing wrong with putting your best offer on the table. I guess we just disagree that that's going to solve the problems that we're seeing. So it's where we're at right now, I guess. don't know what to
I just
tell
think
you.
it's important for you to have that context with,
No, I've had other groups that have brought what they consider to be their best offer as well. The 2.5%, it's interesting. I'm not sure what district you're talking about, but I'm sure they're
I
out
think
there.
Woodburn settled at that.
I have to go look, I think.
Sandy, do you have that list?
They're not districts that I deal with. Not that that matters one or the other. I'm just making sure I'm not forgetting stuff.
Yeah, but I had an OSCA unit that settled just recently and it was like 2.5. So. I mean, it's not yours, but it's an
Right.
OSCA.
And were they equal comparisons and all that kind of, you see what I'm saying? Like,
They would probably tell you they're probably a little low relative to where you're at here in Silver Falls. So.
well,
Sandy, do you want to read those, which districts?
Well, I've got Canby and Corbett at 2%, and Minville was at 2.75. Dallas, it says 1% for this coming year, 2% for 22.
plus their steps, yeah.
Dayton was 0%, but they got a PERS pickup. And then they settled for 2% for 22, 23. Those are some of them. that I-
Yeah, Dallas actually, they didn't have emergency closure language that they really wanted. They didn't have vacation for all, which they got. They didn't have any of the stipend stuff that you guys have. I mean, they picked up a lot of other things, and the leadership there was very clear that, interestingly enough, I probably won't get to say this very often, that wages were not their first concern. I think I've said that enough to count it on one hand my whole career. But they had, because they have a much senior group there, they're a lot off the scale, so 1-2% plus the back end raise for them. They felt that was, so it's a little nuances from district to district, but their priorities lie elsewhere. So, yeah, I understand. I think it's really going to be really hard for us to figure this out at 2% and $5. I'm just trying to be straightforward with you. I don't know how we get that done. We will keep trying, but it definitely becomes problematic, I think, if that is the best offer. So,
I'll just say a quick word. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we all recognize that we're working with a tide that's not infinitely large. We have a budget, we have a board approved budget that budgeted, I believe, for 2%.
let's do.
What we've tried to do, and I wanted to just applaud the team on their creativity and Kim on all their hard work, is what we were all hearing was that wages really needed to be increased. And we understand that there's upward pressure on wages. And so it was a creative way to say, how can we answer that question? How can we respond to that need when we already know that our health insurance is quite high, quite generous, and there's some room there, there's some wiggle room there. And I think, I know what I keep seeing is just, again, as Dan has said, needing a little bit of focus on priorities, because it still feels like we just want the pie to be bigger. And that's just not possible. I mean, we have to shift within our budget. We have to shift within the money that we have to work with. And so I'm just concerned that we're a little stuck here, because I'm seeing salary, and I'm seeing insurance, and I'm seeing vacation. And those are all great things, and we would do it for everyone if we could. I think that, if we could raise all of these things, we would, but we're limited. We have a certain amount of money that we have allocated that we have to spend. So, and then, it has to go back to the board and be approved by the board. So I would just echo, I'm totally supportive of our team, and I would just echo, I'm a little concerned that I'm disappointed that our proposal wasn't more successful because I felt like it was a really creative way to address some needs and to give your membership some real flexibility in having more dollars to be able to allocate to different purposes, based on what people's individual needs are. And as Kami even said, there were folks who were leaving those benefits on the table because they couldn't, because of those IRS limitations, couldn't spend them all. And this seemed like a great way to free up more funds for folks. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, we asked the question, how many people, right? Like, is it 3 or is it most of, I mean, there's like a lot of unknowns there. I guess
We
our
know how
historian
many-
had to
how many-
leave, Rick is not here, but, I think he would tell you, because he's told me many times, predating our time here, Dan, teachers got a percentage, we came walk in, they offered it to the classified. Now, there's a series of problems there, because even though it might be equal, it may not be equitable, right? However, we found 6% for the teachers, which is a huge, huge amount of money compared to anything we're asking for just in 1 year. We found 4% for the second year and 4% for the third year. And we're not even talking the language changes, just those things, and now you got a group that, 6 or 4% would be a very small pittance compared to that group. And I think that's the teachers, just saying, when you look at the cost of it, it would be much less to give us 6 or 4%. That's just the nature of how it is. And, it creates hard feelings and problems, and I'm hearing a lot of chatter beyond this table from people who are feeling, quite frankly, really disrespected by this group. I'll just lay it out there for you. Whether that's the intent or not, it's what's coming to my ear. People that, not this guy or that guy, people calling me up and talking to me, they watch this stuff. And, I just have to tell them that we're trying to work through the process. I keep hearing things like, it was better under so-and-so, it was better under this person, the previous people that left, however you want to categorize that. That is worrisome for me. Because I think Dan will tell you that I've been trying really hard to get people here talking to each other, with the other, feeling appreciated. I know he's done a lot of that work too. And my concern is that's going to unravel, and I know what that leads to. I've been around long enough, and more work for me and Dan. So not that I don't mind working hard, but I don't know how we get past this impasse. And I think I'd rather be honest at the table about that than just step around it carefully. I don't know. We're trying to show you some different things. I think there's room to make some changes in insurance. If we see changes in other things, that's the point of a bundle, is that you're trying to shift here to go here, like you're talking about. I think there's room for movement in these areas. But it is something that I don't have the answer. We'd be done now, probably, right?
Well, but your bundle actually didn't move money between salary and insurance. I mean, those are the same. I mean, you reduced your salary proposal a little bit, but all of the other provisions of that are identical.
Well, most of them are identical in Article 4, especially because what we saw, and this goes back to what you were talking about, I think a little bit about change a little bit here, change a little bit there. What we saw was reduction here and nothing changed here. And I understood why you did that. But I just don't think talking to our folks meets their needs the way you hoped. So
Well, but it
we'd
wasn't.
be
a
bargaining
reduction.
against ourselves at that point, right?
Well, but it wasn't a reduction, Hobie. Nothing in that proposal was a reduction, right? The amount of money
It
that
was
was being
shifting,
spent, right?
Mhm.
We shifted the money around. It was still being spent. It was going into compensation for classified employees. There was no reduction. And so I'm going to object to the use of that word. Because all we did was we took insurance money and we spent it on salary, which, by the way, costs us more money. Right? Because it requires us to make a pension contribution on it. It requires us to pay Social Security, Medicare, all of those. I mean, for every dollar we put on that, it's another 35 or 40 cents on the dollar. So the movement we made in the net wash of it ended up costing us more in terms of putting money into your retirement accounts and all of those other pieces that went with it. So it definitely wasn't a reduction.
That's fine.
More taxes too.
Right. I mean, there's trade-offs in it. And
Well, not if you decide to, not if you decided to distribute it into a TSA or an HSA or some other,
Right, but I want
Tax
to go out and buy a little spread.
I'm just saying.
yeah, no, and I understand that. And, and that's fine. I mean, I don't want to wordsmith. Rejection will say reduced amount here to move over here. I don't get caught up in this stuff. The important piece here is trying to figure out how to make it work. so that we can, I mean, you want a 2-year deal, we're proposing a 1-year deal. We haven't gotten past that, you know, and I don't see how we would with what's on the table. So we, even if we, let's say we agreed to the 2% and the $5, not saying that we are, then we'd be back here next year having another discussion, you know? I'm trying to have an honest discussion here so that we can kind of ferret out anything that anybody's thinking or missing. I want to hear everybody's opinion, you know, your opinion's valuable, just same as any one of my people. But I honestly don't know where we go from here. I guess it's good that you're up next.
Well, we're 2:30 to 6:30 on the 22nd. Is that
That is correct.
okay?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks.